Hi and welcome back. Now in this video, we are going to look at how we can use the AWS CodeBuild service. Now the AWS CodeBuild service is a fully managed build service that's provided on the AWS cloud. Here you don't need to provision any servers, any infrastructure. So now the build service itself is a complicated process. In order for you to ensure that you can automate your build process, you have to ensure that the target server or the target location has not only all the OS installed, but also all the tools that are required to run your application. So the automation is a very complex procedure, but this entire procedure is actually managed to an extent using the AWS CodeBuild service, and we're actually going to get a better idea of this when we actually go to our demo. You can pull the code out from multiple locations. So you can take the code from multiple locations and the AWS CodeBuild tool will take the code and build it accordingly. So these locations include your simple storage service, AWS code commit, or even GitHub. Now in our demo, we're going to do the following. So we're going to create a build project. We're going to specify the location of our code. In our example, we're going to go pretty simple just to understand the entire build procedure. So we're going to be using basic C++, a simple code. We need to build something known as a build specification YAML file. So now this file will actually indicate the different parameters, and I'm actually going to go through the build specification file. This is required for the AWS CodeBuild service. The CodeBuild service will look at the specification file. It will see how to build your project, and then we'll specify here the input location, the output location. And I said you'll get a better idea when we actually go into our demo. We're going to zip the contents of both our C++ file and the build specification file. We're going to upload it to an S3 bucket. We're going to specify that location in our CodeBuild project. So what happens behind the scenes? So first we create a build project. We specify that our code is going to be in S3. That code is going to be taken from S3. It's going to be deployed to a container. So I said the CodeBuild service is a completely managed service. You don't need to specify the target service. This container will automatically be spun up for you. So if you want to run your code on a Linux container, it will create a Linux container, it will deploy your code, and it will build your code. So this is the entire process of how the AWS CodeBuild service works. Now let's go to the AWS console. Let's see how we can work with the CodeBuild service. So here we are in the AWS console. Now we're going to go ahead and use the AWS CodeBuild service. So I already have one build project already created, but we're going to create a new build project. Now before we actually go ahead and create a build project, there are some prerequisites we need to do. So first is our code file, and next I said is our build specification.yaml file. We need to upload this onto S3. So this is my C++ file, a very simple hello world file. It just has one statement which puts it to the output, the hello world stream. It just has one statement which puts hello world onto the output stream. Next I have the build specification.yaml file. So in this we define phases. So first is the install phase. This is the commands for ensuring that the bare essentials are installed on the target environment, which will actually compile our code. We then have the build phase. So in the build phase, we are just echoing saying that we are compiling the code, and we're using the compiler to compile the code and create an output file. And then finally, in the artifact section, you can mention which are the main artifacts which can be pushed into an output S3 bucket. So in addition to specifying what is your input files, you can also specify a target of your output files. And normally this is the case. So when you do a build, whatever is the output should be in a separate location, so that if you want to automate the deployment of that build, you could take it from that location. So these are two files. This is the, we have the hello world, that's the code file, and then we have our build specification file. Now what you have to do is that you just have to take both of these files, zip it up as only one file. And once you've actually zipped that file, so I said just take both the files, zip it up, and then upload it to an S3 bucket of your choice. So I'm now going to go ahead and upload that zip file to my S3 bucket. So this is the hello world.zip. So in this zip file, I have two files. One is my code file, one is the build specification file. I'm going to go ahead and upload the zip file. Right, so that's done. We have our zip file in place. Now let's go to AWS CodeBuild. Let's create a fresh new project. Let's give a project name. If you want, you can add a description to the project. So now the key important thing is the source provider. So you can choose different source providers. So it could pick up the code from Amazon S3, which is going to be our demo. We could use AWS Code Commit. You could use Bitbucket, GitHub, and GitHub Enterprise. So these are the options available to you. For the purpose of our demo, let's go ahead and use Amazon S3. Then we have to choose our bucket. So let's choose our code build sample 345 bucket. We need to mention what is the zip file. So what's the key? If we go back to our S3 management console, so we can see it's hello world.zip. So let's mention that as the key file name. Next is our environment. So I said that the code has to go onto an environment to be built. You could specify your own Docker image. So if you have a custom environment which does the entire build process, then you can specify that Docker image. Else, there are also already pre-built images available or environments available in AWS. So for the purpose of this demo, in order to build our C++ file, we're going to choose Ubuntu. We're going to choose the base environment. So this is the base environment for running our file. And we're going to choose the base runtime version which is available. If you go down, if you have any different name for your build specification file, you can, but follow the standards. So we already have our build specification file. And where do we want to put our artifacts for the build project? So here is where you can actually specify a different S3 bucket for your location of the output files. But for the moment, we can actually just leave this as it is. We can leave it as no artifacts. This will automatically create a service role. So this service role will actually allow AWS to call any other dependent AWS services. I do want this to be part of a VPC. So I'm going to go ahead and click on continue. So now that our entire build project is under review, we can go ahead and click on save. Now once it's saved, you can actually click on it and click on start build. And if you go down, click on the start build process. Now it will show you the different phase details. So let's come back once all the phases are complete. Now once the entire process is complete, you will have the ability to see the different phase details. You will see the status. If there is a failure, you can actually go down to the build logs and you can see the failure. But in our case, you can see that it successfully run the command to build our file and the build was a success. So this is how you can actually pull out your source code from different locations that are available, do the build process on target environments already available. I said if you don't have environment, then you can use your own custom Docker image. Now let's move on to our next video, which is using the AWS code pipeline service.